Hello, and welcome to this week's From the Vault episode from the Magdalen House podcast. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and affectionately known by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we bring you a new release. In our From the Vault episodes, we share past podcast releases from our 3 different podcast series: Recover Ed, Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics, and Hope for the Family. Our podcast aims to connect, inspire, and educate alcoholics, loved ones, and the community to the Magdalen House and the services we offer. We are glad you're here, and thank you for listening.
Good morning, everyone. Today we are doing our series, Interview with a Drunk. So for those of you who are new, in substitute of daily check-ins, once or twice a week, we do workshops. One of the workshop series we do is Interview with a Recovered Drunk. I like to think of these as God-guided conversations because I don't know what's going to be asked or what we're going to talk about, and I really thoroughly enjoy them. This morning, we have Nina on, who I absolutely adore. She is a recovered alcoholic, so she has experience to share with us as far as the solution, the steps, and anything else you guys want to ask. And so, Nina, I also want to mention that everyone who is here because they want to be here. Like, these are not, I don't make this a requirement. Like, these are just here if the women choose to participate in them, which I think is really cool. The amount of women that we have that show up who just are eager to grow in their recovery, unless they're in their first week. But I don't know if we have anybody in their first week. So I really think that everyone here is here on their own free will. So go ahead and take it away, Nina. If you could just start and give us a little bit of background information about yourself.
I'm very grateful to be here. My name is Nina. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I got sober about 5 years ago. My sobriety date is January 5th of 2015. I think I was 26 at the time. My math is bad. I'm 32 now, so whatever that is. So I was young, and, I was someone that worked in the service industry for basically all my life up to that point. I had just started working at a nonprofit at that time, but up until then, I had always worked around people that drank a lot. And so, I really, when I first drank, I was a really, goody two shoes in high school and growing up. And I didn't drink until I was 19. But the first drink that I had, I just remember feeling like, oh my God, I have found the thing that I've been looking for. And it was the thing that allowed me to be this person that people liked and had fun, as opposed to this very shy and awkward girl that I had always been. And so, I had that first drink, and from there, I fell in love with alcohol. And I didn't see it as, a problem for a long time, because I was in college and we partied, and I was working in the service industry and we drank. And, I started to smoke pot whenever I was 21. And I remember when I started smoking weed, because again, very like goody two shoes. I would only do it for a year. And so a year came and went. And I was like, whatever, still young. Don't really need to quit it yet. And the weed is actually what got me an addictions counselor. I had tried to quit smoking, and I had, drinking too, but it really was the smoking that I noticed was weird at the time. And I went for about a year. And I did everything in that church program. I went a year without smoking pot, and then I went about 8 months without drinking. And, I remember kind of on the other side of it, realizing like, what the heck, like nothing has changed. Like, I did this thing to like fix those parts of my life. And when I came out on the other side and it was not fixed, it was worse, I kind of just said, screw it. Like, this is who I am, I guess. Like, this is what I'm going to be like. And I was still okay with that at the time because I was still young. And also I had experienced, losing my grandmother really suddenly. And that was really my excuse, was being sad that, I didn't have my gram anymore, and it was sudden. And that was why I was living this life. And coupled with the fact that I was young and working in the service industry, like I had all those excuses, right? It says on 23, it says that we have excuses that seem plausible. And those are what were all plausible excuses. But at some point, the havoc an alcoholic drinking bout creates, like, no longer equals out with those excuses. And I butchered it, but it says, or it's on 23, but it says, if you ask him why he started on that last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. And so this is where, I really started to, I didn't have any of those big external consequences that I thought that people had. Like, I thought that one of the prerequisites to being in Alcoholics Anonymous was having a DWI or being a bum under a bridge. Like, I just really thought like AA was the last stop on the block for me, especially because knowing too that, like, in my mind, my life was totally manageable. Like, yeah, the alcohol and the pot smoking was like out of control, but I had a job, I had a car, I had a family that still talked to me, I had friends, I had all of these things that I thought made my life manageable, and very little external consequences. All of my consequences were really internal. And so I didn't think it was me. And I remember, I was seeing this counselor, and she said, go to AA. And she would say it every week. And I was like, oh my God, first of all, I'm not here about the alcohol. Second of all, why? I'm paying you. And so finally, just to get her off my back, I went to an AA meeting. And it was, I always say it was a room full of old guys. There was one woman, she was in her 30s, and she walked in. I was like, oh, thank God. But they were so kind, and they went around their room, and they told short versions of their story. And I remember sitting there, and I was like, holy shit, I am an alcoholic, and I'm addicted to pot. Like, I can't quit either of these things. And they told stories, of them drinking and using cocaine and all of these different things that the details were different in some instances, but in that moment I realized, like, I am an alcoholic. And I went back to my counselor and I said, okay, you were right. Like, I do belong in AA. Thanks so much. I'm going to stop paying you now. And, but even though I heard those stories, I didn't know what it meant. And ultimately I finally, I went to this foundation meeting, and had steps 1 through 3 explained to me, really step 1. And I remember just sitting there with like tears rolling down my face, because the question that she asked was, have you ever said you're going to stop drinking and then picked up and started again? And I was like, literally, yes, every single day for as long as I can remember. And, that's it. Like, I have a mind that keeps telling me that I can drink successfully. And every time I attempt to drink successfully, it goes terribly bad. There were maybe a handful of times where I would go and have a couple of drinks at the bar, and I would come home and smoke weed. Or there were a couple of times where in front of my family, I could, just hold it together. And as soon as I was out of their presence, I would be drinking or smoking. Like, it just, it was this thing that had a hold of me, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And so once I found, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I found this woman that, told me her story, and that she was 9 years sober, and she like looked the way she did, and she was happy, and she didn't seem like, she seemed genuinely happy. I thought, oh my gosh, like, maybe this is for me. And of course, because we are hard-headed, I sat in that foundation meeting, I cried, I was like, yes, I'm an alcoholic. Like, even though, months before I'd found this like first AA meeting and I knew I was an alcoholic, I said it again. And then I started coming back to these meetings, and I hated it. like, and this is my home group now, and I hated it. I felt like it was so elementary, the way that we would read the book line by line. And I remember coming home to my my roommate, and I realized that I said something like, oh my gosh, these meetings make me want to drink. And, she just was like, she looked at me with like, deer in the headlight kind of look. And she was like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, this sucks. Like this is like a really crappy position to be in. And I kept going back. And I went back at one point, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm an alcoholic. This is a lot. And I remember my first sponsor being like, well, then you don't have to come. Like you don't have to, like, don't come to these meetings if you don't think you're an alcoholic. Like, let's not waste our time doing this step work. And so I was like, awesome. Like, nobody has ever said that to me. I've always been like, told like, you can do it, like, keep going. And what that allowed me to do was have this step one experience where I went back out, and we have this head full of what the book says, and we drink, and it all kind of comes to like, oh shit. And so I went back out, and I came back in, and I finally said, I'm ready to start doing this. And we went through the work, and I wanted to graduate because I thought AA was for losers. And so I did the 12 steps, and I said, thank you so much. I'm going to go be helpful at church. I don't think my experience was rough enough to do step 12. I didn't ever go to treatment. I didn't ever drink in the morning like some of you people. I smoked pot in the morning, but that, didn't ever drink in the morning. I was looking for all these reasons that I really didn't need AA. And my sponsor was like, okay. And what did I do? I think I was probably about a month in, and I said, I want to smoke weed. And she was like, okay. And I was like, oh, again, this lady is just telling me like, okay, because like she knew that I had to have my own experience of realizing this powerlessness. And so I did, and I went back out, and I came right back in. It was like one of those revolving doors. I was like, whoop, nope, don't like this. Okay, coming back in. And she was like, okay, well, we're going to rework the steps again. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? We like literally just finished those. And so we reworked the steps. And when we got to step 12, she said, okay, now you're actually going to go and help other alcoholics. You're going to follow the direction. And so that's what I started doing. And, I was thinking about this morning in my meditation, because sometimes I don't talk about the pot thing just because of singleness of purpose. But I think, this was kind of a place where I could share that. But I didn't lose the desire to stop smoking immediately. Like, alcohol went away pretty quickly. It probably went away within about a month-ish. Like, once I'd worked the steps, like that desire, that voice was gone. And that to me was a freaking miracle. It might've been 2 months after that, like, redo of the steps. But that desire to smoke stayed with me for about a year. And I remember that because I had been sober for probably like somewhere around nine months to a year. And I went on this trip with my friends, and it was kind of lame. And, they were like well-meaning church friends that, were trying to like help me have a good time in sobriety. And it was fine. Like, it was a camping trip. But I remember driving back from that and being like, I still want to smoke weed. And just like having this moment of like tears rolling down my face, because I was like, I am doing everything that I know to be doing, and this is not gone. And sometimes these, and the book says this, like, sometimes these happen quickly, sometimes slowly, but these promises always manifest if we work for them. And it wasn't really long after a year that finally I realized one day that it was no longer a thought. It was no longer, it was just gone. And I remember it because I had a neighbor that was, talking about smoking weed. And I just was like, oh, like, there was nothing in me that was like, oh, I wish I could be doing that. And I think that that's, important, because sometimes we just like, we want this to be an instant magic pill, and it's magic, and it's incredible, and it's life-changing, and it's truly, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be sober if it wasn't infinitely better than my life was whenever I was drinking and smoking weed. Has it been hard? Yes. Has it always been hard? No. There's been like these pockets of, where it's beautiful, and it's so easy and it's so natural. And then there's other pockets where it's hard and it's really hard. And, and that's not just the program, it's life. Like life, I'm dealing with life sober. That was something I didn't have any experience with. And then there's times where it's just, it's just another Tuesday. And, but I wouldn't have made it this far if those step 10 promises didn't come true. And so I think that's probably enough to qualify myself, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you so much. Does anybody have a question? Okay, I have a question. I have lots of questions. I never know where I'm going to start. Okay, so I guess I'll start with, you said that your consequences were internal. Can you share like how you felt internally?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, and I'm glad you asked that, because it was just like what I, thought was supposed to happen to an alcoholic was all this bad stuff on the outside, but the internal stuff that was going on with me was, at the end, I didn't want to live anymore, and I wasn't suicidal. I was scared of death. Still am, but I didn't want to live anymore, but I didn't want to die. And that was a weird feeling that I'd never experienced before, because it felt like I was in this endless cycle of screwing up and saying I wasn't going to do it again and screwing up. And so I hated looking at myself in the mirror. I was so ashamed. I was constantly, losing all of my things. I was constantly waking up in places with people I didn't know. And it just so, like cringeworthy things that I was doing. And it was just like, I remember thinking like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I continue? Like, I am just like an awful, awful person. Like, I keep hurting the people around me. I keep doing these stupid things. I, just like losing all of my self-worth of thinking that I was, anything, and really honing in on like, I'm a bad person. Like, I am just a shitty, awful person that I cannot do better for myself. Like, and that was really hard. I mean, I just, I really, the end of my drinking was alone in my room with boxed wine, because I was so afraid of what would happen with going out. And to me, that was just like, wow, what a loser that just like sits in her room and drinks. Like, what a life that I live.
I like that you answered that, because I think a lot of times outside circumstances can look very different for everyone coming in. But I think the one thing that we can all relate to is that guilt and that shame and that no self-worth, and that being at the jumping off place, where it's like, you don't want to live, but you're scared to die kind of thing. And
yeah.
I'm glad that
and I think it's this perfect example of how the alcoholic life becomes the only normal one. And sometimes that looks like the external stuff, where maybe you're spending your money on booze and not on electricity, or, whatever that might be, that can apply to external. But I really see that as this internal thing too, because I remember, like, it's so funny, the random things that I remember, but I remember driving down Dallas North Tollway and thinking, I don't care if I don't have a family, if I don't have a career, if I don't ever get married, if I, as long as I can just drink, I will be okay. And that was, this like giving up of everything, I think is so, like, that's not normal. Like, non-alcoholics don't give up all their hopes and their dreams and their wishes just to be able to drink. And I think that kind of plays into, this like internal feeling. But it's so, like, that's crazy. Like, if you were to tell a non-alcoholic, like, oh, like, I gave up, everything I ever wanted in my life just to be able to drink booze, they would, probably look at you with their jaw on the floor. Like, what? Just stop drinking,
Yeah. Anybody else have a question? Okay. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, for everyone who knows or doesn't know, the Magdalen House is having a Wall of Hope brick campaign where you can buy a brick and you can have something like written on it for you. And I loved how you were saying, like, everyone's like thinking of like what they should put on this brick, right? It's forever. And then one of the things you said is like something that like your sponsor has told you that has always resonated with you. So I was wondering if you could share like some of the things that your sponsors have told you along the way that have always stuck with you, that like you share with your sponsees, kind of thing.
I love that. Yeah. The biggest thing that my first sponsor told me was to pray for willingness. And I remember when she said that, I just thought that was like the craziest thing, because, I had prayed before in my life, but never did I ever think to pray for willingness. Because of course, when we start doing this, it is so scary. And there's this period of where we're kind of going through mourning, right? Because like the Nina that I loved, and even though it was a shit show, the Nina that I loved was the Nina that was drinking and smoking. And she did a lot of really cool things, and that was what made her cool in my mind. What made that Nina cool, that version, was the drinking and the smoking. And so when we come into this, we want to get sober, right? Because alcohol has beat us into a state of reasonableness. Like, we're sick and tired of it. The thing that kind of keeps us from jumping on that wheel of hell, I think, because right, it talks about in the doctor's opinion, we emerge remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. And then we do it over and over again. Like we end up, we have a desire, we take that first drink, the allergy sets off, we can't control our drinking, we end up with a firm resolution not to drink again, but then that desire sets back. And it's like this never ending wheel. And like, even like getting into Alcoholics Anonymous and hearing and understanding what it's saying and putting it and seeing my experience and lining those two things up and saying, oh yeah, I am an alcoholic. The book also tells us that self-knowledge avails us nothing. So we can understand what it's saying all we want, but the key that really unlocks the moving forward in this is willingness. And willingness is different than wanting something, is because it's followed by action. And, I thought that I had to muster up the willingness. And so when my sponsor told me to pray for willingness, I was like, oh, like I never thought of that. Like, yeah, I like have a want to get sober. Am I willing? Yeah. Like this, like, yeah, I know the answer is yes, I'm willing to go to any lengths, but like, holy crap, that's so scary. But praying for that. And that's something that I carry into my life every day now. I mean, like, I say every day, but like a lot, because I'm the person that doesn't like to answer the phone. I hate talking on the phone, y'all. I'm the person that like gets really nervous when I have a woman that wants to start working with me, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna mess it up. And even yesterday, like I had a girl call, and I've worked with her a long time ago, and she's coming back in, and she doesn't leave me a message. And my sponsor always tells me, if you don't leave me a message, you didn't call. And also, even if you do leave a message and I don't call you back, it's on you to call me. And I know that, but this girl that's like newly sober, trying to get sober, who's worked with me in the past and knows to leave a message, still doesn't leave a message. And so my thought is, she knows to leave a message, but am I willing because me working with her is about my sobriety. That's like, am I willing to go to any links? Am I willing to pick up the phone and call her even though she didn't leave a message? Well, yeah, I am. And so even today, like, praying for willingness is so key. And the other thing, I had another sponsor that I didn't work with for very long, but she did give me something, and I feel like that's why I was working with her. She gave me the advice, because it wasn't in the book, and I don't know that prayer for willingness is either, but she said to give yourself grace. And I remember like being taken aback by that, because y'all, we are hard-headed, like, we have tried to figure out all the ways to drink successfully, right? And it's gone poorly, and now we like have this solution, and we want to do it perfectly, and we don't want to mess it up, and we want to make sure that we like don't misstep here, or oh my god, like I didn't do my nightly, like what an asshole, like all these things. But to give ourselves grace, and to know that like this is something that I'm going to mess up, but also giving myself grace, because because God gives me grace. God has given me grace to this point. And just like I'm able to extend grace to those around me, like the girl who didn't call me, I can extend grace to myself. And that's been a really big like breath, I think, for me, to like be able to like breathe and realize that like, oh, I'm not going to drink just because I don't do a nightly, or because I go a week without, making a 10th step necessarily. That's for me personally. That my like, it's about this like willingness, and me trying the best of my ability, and not like nobody wants to be told like you're doing that wrong, like that doesn't make me want to do it right. Like I'm like, screw you, I'm gonna keep doing it wrong, like whatever. The same is true for myself. Like it doesn't make me feel good when I'm telling myself like you're doing it wrong. Like I think there's this like there's a beautiful thing that's in like positivity and love. And I think like we get this idea, this construed idea of God, because it's this construed idea that we have of ourselves. Like I used to always think like God thinks I'm like a crappy person because I'm not doing good. And that was just my idea and my understanding of God. Whereas God like loves me as much as he did from the day I was born to now. Like none of that crappy, like wild stuff that I did in between then and now has changed that. Like God loves me just as much now in my sobriety as he did in my darkest days of drinking. And so being able to have some grace for myself, I think just changes my perspective of not only who God is, but like how to seek him. So those are two things.
Thank you. I was actually talking about willingness last night with someone, and how we're literally all sober because of the grace of God. And so I was like, well, then like, what do you think about willingness? But really praying for the willingness, God gives you that willingness. And so then I can't even take credit for it anymore. Right. Because I'm praying, like, because God's giving me the willingness, because I want to take credit for everything,
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else have a question? No? Okay. So one of the things that I do know about you, and that it sparked whenever you were talking, is you're always actively sponsoring women, at least since I've known you. So can you share your experience about sponsoring, whether you have like a story you want to tell, or how like you first started sponsoring and how it's changed? Just what experience do you want to share with us as far as sponsorship goes?
Sure. Well, I think, I didn't get my first protege or sponsee until I was probably about a year sober, even though I was going to Maggie's and like, hey, I'm available, like raising my hand. And I was kind of bummed, and God will have somebody for us to sponsor. in the right time. But sponsoring, I always thought that my sponsor knew everything. And I thought my sponsor, just had studied, hours upon hours. And, but what I've realized in being a sponsor, and a lot lately too, especially as I continue to have more years, and I'm still like, when a new girl calls, I'm like, oh my God, wait, what do I do? Wait, and so even still today, like there are points when I call my sponsor in the beginning of this and be like, wait, can you remind me what I'm supposed to do in this part? Because I've done it so many times. And but I was listening to an interview with Kathleen, and she talked about how this, having one hand behind you holding another hand, and one hand in front of you holding your sponsor's hand, the one behind you is holding your sponsee, and how that kind of keeps your hands held from picking up a drink. And I really liked that visual. But having somebody that I'm sponsoring, I always thought that my sponsor was helping me so much, and that like I was inconveniencing her whenever I would call. And what I know now is that when I'm sponsoring somebody, that is helping me so much more than I think I'm even helping her. I know I'm helping her, but there's something in me that's happening. And it's so funny because a lot of times, like I'll be giving a sponsee direction and I'm like, oh, that also applies to my life. Huh. Funny when you say it and you hear it out of your own mouth, how that works. God's funny like that. But it's sponsoring it's weird, and it's messy, and it's you're gonna mess it up, and you're gonna say something wrong. And I kind of found it funny because last night I called my sponsor yesterday about the whole thing with the girl not calling me or leaving me a message. And I was like, trying to figure out, do I call her back? What do I do? And she's been texting me, and this girl. And so my sponsor, sometimes she'll call me back the next day, or even a couple of days, like I'll call her back. But she actually texted me to tell me, texting is not calling. Like, and she like sent this whole text about not texting. And I was like, oh, well, how humorous is this? She's texting me to tell me that texting, and I was like, for me, that was this beautiful reminder of like, my sponsor is also not perfect, because I'm constantly in fear that I am somehow going to mess up my sponsee's journey of sobriety because I say something wrong, or because I don't tell them, like, don't text me, because she texted me like 3 or 4 times. And so like, it's just like this cool thing that you're going to have these unique experiences with every woman, and you're going to be scared, and you're also not going to want to answer the phone. For me, maybe somebody likes to talk on the phone a lot, but that's all normal. And I think it's, something for me that I think is always going to be this way. It's always going to be kind of a way that God is using me to grow is, by answering the phone. Like literally, y'all, I have had so many times where it's like 8:30, like not that late, but it's like 8:30. I'm like scrolling on Instagram, and then like a sponsee is calling me, and I'm like, like, and my phone is always on silent, y'all. Like my phone is always on silent. I don't like it not on silent. And so when she's calling me and I'm like right there, and I'm like, oh, am I willing to answer the phone? And it's just like, it's this continual exercise of willingness, but also something that my sponsor has kind of reframed for me is like, those things are meetings with God. And I always thought that seeking God was getting on my knees and praying or whatever. But what I found, where I find and connect with God the most, is through my sponsors and the women that I sponsor. Like that is where I get these like chills and these moments of just like, wow, like God is so good, especially when, I am in that moment of like, oh gosh, I got to answer this phone call. And I get off the phone and I'm just like, I'm exuding joy. Sponsorship is something that the book says, nothing so much ensures immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. Intensive work is taking a woman through this program. And she might just get to step 3 and leave. And she might get through all the way through the steps and then leave. And that's okay. Like it's not like we have no responsibility to keep another human sober, just like nobody had that responsibility on us. But what we get to do is we get to be the loving hand of AA, and we get to be helpful, because before we weren't helpful. And this is a way that we get to practice, and it's really cool.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah. Well, it's not a question, but hi, Nina. I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing that, because, I really have a passion for helping others, but that phone, it's, I just get this anxiety. If I'm right there in front of that person, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But to pick up the phone, and I am so glad you shared that, staring at the phone when it's ringing, because I do the same thing. I'm like, But I need a 12-step program for the phone. I really do.
Pray for the business.
Covers it.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for sharing it. I feel better that we're both handicapped in that way. Sorry to include you in my problem.
I'm glad to be.
Anybody else? Okay. So to kind of piggyback off of that, you said you didn't get your first protege for a year. And whenever the women know that are in Next Step, like if they are on steps 10, 11, and 12, and then, I asked them 2 questions, like, well, what does that look like for you in your daily life? And then the next question is like, are you a sponsor? And if they say no, then they know I'm going to ask, well, do people know that you're a sponsor? Like, what are you doing to make yourself available to sponsor? And so that would be my same question for you, is what were you doing to make yourself available for sponsorship?
Yeah.
And what do you do to make yourself available? I mean, I think the longer we're sober, the easier it is to get sponsees, like, because people just know that you're like, she's been sober for a while, she sponsors, kind of thing. But whenever you're first sober and you're first out there, like doing 10, 11, and 12, like, you really have to like make yourself available, kind of thing. Like, what would you do? What did you do?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. And I think even still, especially like being in this weird pandemic too, because like my home group is notorious for like not having newcomers, and working at Maggie's, like I'm not allowed to work with Maggie's women unless like we knew each other before, or like, but like women that are in the house, like I don't get to work with them. And so for me, because Maggie's was always this place where I like got, proteges from, that's kind of been interesting, and especially the pandemic, because also I don't have my regular commitment. But especially in the beginning, going, and more than just saying like, hi, I'm Nina and I'm available to sponsor, it's going up to women and saying, hey, like, how are you? Like, where are you at in the work? And, do you have a sponsor, right? Because, this talks about how, like, I'm supposed to actively pursue people to sponsor. And, that doesn't mean chasing someone down the street and be like, let me sponsor you. But it's also like, actually, connecting with someone, because remember, how afraid were you when you were first sober, and you're like, oh my God, like all these people, like everybody knows what they're doing, and like I don't think I can go talk to her, like she seems really intimidating. But like being like extending that, and saying, and even just giving out your number and saying like, hey, like if you need a sponsor or just someone to talk to, like here's my number. That's a great way to start kind of getting people to call you. And even just kind of, somebody has a sponsor and they're looking, just saying like, hey, like if you ever want to talk, like here's my number. Sometimes we don't necessarily like connect with our first sponsor, and maybe we want to talk to somebody else. But it's, for me now, like I'm trying to go to, different meetings other than my home group to connect with women that are new. Like I make the approach. And, you know, of course, like that is very intimidating, but even what we learn is that me going to a meeting isn't about me needing a meeting or learn. Like, it's great that I get to go to a meeting and learn, but me going to a meeting is to find the newcomer. And to make them feel welcome, and to, you know, let them know, hey, I'm here. If you want to talk, or if you want to be, you know, looking for a sponsor, I'm available. That's something that's so important. And even the cool thing is as you grow in your sobriety too, and you know, now like my sponsor will give out my number if she's got too much going on, and that's cool. You know, sometimes I'll get a text from like Chloe, and she's like, you know, asking a group of people, are you available to sponsor? And I'm always like, and it's like in a group chat, and I'm always like, maybe I'll just wait to see if anybody else responds first. But of course, that's because that's me. But I, you know, respond yes. And, you know, like that's just opportunities for me to continue to be available. And, you know, I've lately, especially being in quarantine, I've been like, oh my gosh, I need somebody that is in the work, because I am in myself. And like, because I have a girl that's gone through the 12 steps, and but even with this new girl calling me, you know, I was just saying like 4 days ago, oh, it'd be great to have someone, you know, to work with new, and then, you know, she's not doing it right or whatever. And I just, another reminder that, like, again, this is a way, this is the way that I get to stay sober, is by passing this on. And, you know, some, you know, sponsees will be like, I'm, you know, so sorry I've wasted your time, or, you know, it's never a waste of my time. I will be honest, and if I don't have the ability to work with you, I will give your number to somebody and let them know that I've given their number out. But if I've said I'm willing to sponsor you, I have that time, and that's important for me to show up. And even if it literally goes nowhere, even if we literally just talk about step one, that's an opportunity that I had to intensively work with another alcoholic, whether we went through the rest of the program or not. And that's cool.
Yes, I like that you said that it is never a waste of my time, for sure. Anybody else? Okay, so I have two questions that I want to ask. Well, the first question, so something that has been really on my mind lately is the promises, like the different promises in the book. And something really cool that my sponsor did with me is she took me back to page 63 to the third step promises. And we went over them one by one, and she asked me if this is true in my life today, and how is it true in my life today. And so it was really cool, because I got to really see how the power of God is like working in my life, you know? And so I've just been thinking about that. And so what promises of the book stick out to you that are really, that you can really feel in your life today? Besides the position of neutrality, because I know that you talk about that one too. So you can share that one, but I want you to say another one so I can hear something new.
Okay.
It's all about me.
Steph knows I always go back. The 10th step promises are always my favorite, because I just think that they prove that it works, and it comes with those contingencies of how, you know, like if we rest on our laurels, like they don't come true, and resting on our laurels is what we did yesterday. So in addition to the 10th step promises, which are on the bottom of 84 and top of 85.
Do you mind reading those?
Sure. Yeah. So on the bottom of 84, it says, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. And, that's that kind of contingency. This is how I react sanely and normally, so long as I keep in fit spiritual condition. And fit spiritual condition, I have written next to this page 14 and 15, and I'm pretty sure it's talking about working with another alcoholic. Yeah, it's at the bottom. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. So, working with others. So in addition to those promises, I think about, and this is really going to test my knowledge of the book, but I think about peace. And I know that there's a couple of places where it talks about peace. I think in the 9th step promises, and then maybe in the 3rd step promises. But y'all, I didn't even, and sometimes I still don't know. I mean, I know what peace is. I'm a very restless person. I am somebody that's I've watched too much TV, gotta do something and move around and, but really having peace is something that I didn't even know I didn't have. Alcohol gave me that feeling of relief, and I thought that was, well, that feels good. But peace is this crazy thing of not worrying about all of the unknowns, right? I used to be so constantly afraid of the future and thinking about it and planning it. And even what I was saying earlier about meetings, going in and not having a plan is not anywhere in my DNA. That is not something that I would ever, think is a good idea. I'm a planned person. And peace is this beautiful thing of being okay, being okay when things aren't exactly going great. Peace is knowing that if I'm going to go into this meeting and have no idea what I'm going to talk about, God's going to use me to say something, no matter how bad I mess it up or, do it perfectly or whatever, God's going to use that. Peace is, living with, I have an alcoholic addict sister who's out. She's not interested in getting well. And, peace is knowing that I can be okay, even if she's not okay. And that was a really hard one to work through, right? This is the hardest thing about being in this program is we're always going to have those people in our lives that don't make it. And whether that's family or friends or, people that we love and respect that go back out. But, that inner peace that comes from it's something that comes from God. And something that I've learned a lot too lately is that this program teaches me how, again, the main purpose of this book is to connect us with a higher power. There's a lot of tools in here, but God gives me the peace. It's not about the number of meetings that I go to, the number of women that I work with, the number of 10 steps it's not about any of that. Those are tools to connect with God, but this peace comes from God. And I think those are my favorites.
Awesome. And I did look, and you were right. It's step 3 and step 9. Step 9 talks about we will know serenity and we will know peace. And step 3 talks about enjoying peace of mind. So you were, in case anybody was wondering, she was right. All right. Now, since we're at the top of the hour, and you were very helpful. Thank you. I just want to ask if there would be one takeaway that you would want us, if you don't hear anything I say, hear this for either trying to get sober, stay sober, whatever the case may be, what would that takeaway that you would want us to have?
This is very hard. And this was one of the ones I was trying not to think about because I know that she always asks it. And I wanted to have, the best answer out of all the people. But I really tried to put it aside. I think the one thing that I would want you to know and take away from this is that it is truly worth it. Like doing this program, being super uncomfortable in some of the things, whether it be, writing a 4th step or doing a 5th step or, making an amends or picking up the phone when somebody is calling, like all of these things that are uncomfortable and feel, like I don't feel like doing, they're so worth it. And, I lived my whole life doing what I felt like doing for so long. And I was miserable. And, even if I was happy, like I wasn't, like there was still something that I needed more. And what this program has taught me is I always talk about it as like a bank account. Like now that I, because in step 3, I said that I was willing to go to any lengths. And so, when I don't feel like answering the phone, or I don't feel like going to my commitment, or I don't feel like calling someone back, I do it anyways because this program taught me that I have to do things that I don't feel like doing, but I get a really beautiful reward for that. And it's like every time I do something I don't feel like this like experience goes in the bank account. And I didn't ever have that bank account before because again, I was putting all my experiences in the feels like account. Like there was nothing in this like don't feel like doing it account. And so, it is worth it. And it is so, I don't know. I just think like, even 5 years in, like I'm still learning who I am as a person. I'm still, learning how to be an adult sometimes. Like it's just, it is so worth it because now I don't know, I'm not afraid of life anymore. Even when it's hard and it's scary, like that piece is there. And so even if you feel like you're never going to lose your obsession, even if you feel like you're doing it all wrong, even if you feel like, what's the point anyhow? Like the women that come and share with you and are recovered are here to say like it works. It really does. Like it's so cool. And being in this position where you are in Next Step and having a beautiful fellowship of women that are in the same boat as you are and getting connections with women that are, have sober or have recovery and have years of experience. Those are all people that are more than happy to talk. And even if, you're just, feeling like maybe it's not worth it, maybe call them. That was a long rambly answer.
No, I love it though, because it's so worth it if you only knew what was on the other side.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you being here. You have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
I will see y'all
Thanks,
later.
Nina.
Bye.
Thank you, Nina.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nina.
Aw.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this From the Vault re-release of the Magdalen House podcast. Tune in every first and third Wednesday for a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services that we offer, visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channel by searching for the Magdalen House.